What if I told you women's basketball is one Caitlin Clark decision away from a full-blown power flip? Not a metaphor, not a hot take, a literal business earthquake that could rewrite who runs the sport by 2026. Because right now, behind the scenes, there's a league that doesn't just want Caitlin, they want to build around Caitlin. And the package being floated is the kind of offer the WNBA has never been able to make under its current system. People online are throwing around a wild number, $150 million. But here's the real story. Whether that exact figure is real or hype, the structure of what she's being offered is the part that has the WNBA sweating. This isn't just a paycheck conversation. It's a respectful conversation. It's an ownership conversation. And if Caitlin even leans toward yes, the league that drafted her could be staring at its worst-case future. Let's start with the part nobody can spin. The money gap was always going to explode. Caitlin Clark didn't enter the WNBA as a normal rookie. She entered as the most watched women's basketball player the sport has ever produced. College fans followed her. New fans followed her. Even people who didn't care about basketball knew her name. She arrived with a spotlight already built. And the WNBA rookie wage scale treated her like, well, a rookie. Her base pay landed in the 70-something thousand range, and even across 4 full seasons, her total contract was still only a few $100,000. That number isn't a judgment on her talent, it's just the system. But systems don't change what reality looks like to the public. Because at the same time she was getting paid rookie money, she was producing superstar value. Everywhere she went, arenas filled up earlier. Cities that normally struggled to sell seats suddenly had lines outside. Games she played in weren't just regular season matchups anymore. They turned into events. Merch moved faster. Broadcasts got louder. The league didn't just get a bump in attention, it got a new audience. So fans started doing the simplest math in the world. How is the player generating the biggest wave in league history being paid like she's replaceable? That's the spark. Not because people think every rookie should get a giant contract, but because Caitlin wasn't a normal rookie economically. She was a one-person marketing engine. The league's biggest growth moment was attached to one name, one jersey, one schedule. And when that happens, underpaying the star doesn't just feel unfair. It feels reckless. Because once a league shows the world it can't reward the person fueling its boom, it creates a perfect storm. Fans get protective, the players' camp gets sharper, and competitors smell blood in the water. And just when that storm was building, the next problem made everything worse. Because the money was one thing, but what she dealt with on the court made it feel personal. If you were watching Caitlin's rookie year, you don't need a montage. You remember the feeling. Every game had this edge to it, not just competition, but tension. Like everyone knew she was the biggest magnet in the building, and some veterans weren't thrilled about it. The physicality wasn't the issue. Basketball is physical. It's supposed to be. The issue was the pattern. The moments where the fouls felt less like defense and more like a message. The moments where the whistles didn't come, and the camera caught Caitlin getting shoved, wrapped up, clipped, checked, and then looking around like, so this is how it's going to be? And what did the league do publicly? Not much. That silence mattered. Because whether you think the contact was normal rookie treatment or targeting, the optics were brutal. When your biggest star is being tested every night, the league has 2 options: protect the product or let the product absorb it. And to a lot of fans, it looked like the WNBA chose option 2. That's how you turn fandom into a courtroom. Viewers stop watching just to enjoy games and start watching like they're collecting evidence. Every cheap shot gets replayed. Every no-call gets clipped. Every post-game quote gets dissected. And once that vibe sets in, it spreads. Casual fans don't talk about good rotations. They talk about, why are they doing her like that? So the resentment narrative grows. The jealousy narrative grows. The idea that the league didn't just underpay Caitlin, but also didn't shield her grows. And right when that storyline got loud, another league slipped into the conversation quietly, then started knocking on her door. And this league isn't asking her to be grateful. It's asking her to be a partner. Unrivaled isn't a maybe someday idea anymore. It's already on the floor, already signing stars, already proving that women's basketball doesn't have to wait for permission to thrive. Here's why that matters. For decades, the WNBA has had a problem that everyone understood, but nobody could fully fix. Top players couldn't make their real money in the WNBA alone. So every offseason turned into a second career overseas. Different country, different system, different risk, just to earn what their talent was worth. Fans accepted it because they had to. Players accepted it because they had no choice. Unrivaled, it was built to snap that cycle in half. It was created by two women who didn't just watch the WNBA from the outside. They survived it from the inside, Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier. These aren't random investors guessing what women athletes want. These are superstars who lived the travel, lived the salary ceiling, lived the wait your turn culture, and then decided to build a league that works the way they wish the WNBA worked. And they didn't build a copy. They built a pressure point. Unrivaled is a US-based 3-on-3 league that runs in the WNBA offseason. Short season, high intensity, and designed for maximum spotlight. The format matters because it's fast, it's personal, and it puts stars in the center of every possession. No hiding, no slow build. Every game feels like a highlight reel waiting to happen. That alone makes it TV-friendly in a way most off-season leagues never are. But the real difference isn't the format. It's philosophy. Unrivaled doesn't treat players like hired hands. It treats them like partners. The pay is already far beyond what most WNBA players make in a season, six-figure minimums right out of the gate. But even that isn't the scary part. The scary part is the equity model. Equity means ownership, a stake, a cut of the future. So instead of the old dynamic, where players generate value and hope the league eventually rewards them, Unrivaled flips it. It says, if the league grows, you grow with it. If the business explodes, your paycheck doesn't stay flat. You're not just cashing checks, you're holding pieces of the machine that prints the checks. That single shift changes everything. Because money alone can be matched eventually. Ownership is harder to compete with because it changes how athletes see themselves. It's not I play here. It's I'm building here. And you can feel that in the way Unrivaled positions itself. The branding is modern, bold, and unapologetically star-driven. It doesn't pretend the league is bigger than the athletes. It admits the truth. The athletes are the league. The product is the personalities, the rivalries, the moments, the culture, which quietly calls out the WNBA's biggest weakness. The WNBA has often marketed itself as a league-first business. Support the league. Grow the league. Be grateful the league exists. Unrivaled markets like a player-first business. We're here because the players are the product, and they deserve control of it. That's why players pay attention. Not just rookies, not just role players, stars. Because when you give athletes three things at once, big pay, prime exposure, and long-term ownership, you don't just attract talent. You attract belief. You attract the people who want to be part of something that's rising, not stuck in old rules. So even if Unrivaled starts as an off-season league, the psychological impact is bigger than its schedule. It proves another reality. The WNBA is no longer the only door. And once that door exists, the entire balance of power shifts. Players stop thinking in terms of where can I play, and start thinking in terms of where am I respected, protected, and paid like who I actually am. That's why Unrivaled isn't just a side league. It's a leverage engine. And the second a leverage engine locks onto the biggest star in the sport, it stops being extra basketball. It becomes a threat. Because if you're Unrivaled, you don't just want good players. You want the player who changes the weather. And that's exactly why Caitlin Clark became the center of their biggest pitch. Here's what credible reporting actually says. Multiple outlets tied to sports business, not just random fan pages, reported that Unrivaled and Caitlin Clark had high-level conversations. The pitch, a package described as Lionel Messi-like. And that phrase matters because Messi's MLS deal wasn't just salary. It was revenue share, ownership-style upside, media money, and brand control. For Caitlin, reports say Unrivaled was willing to offer over $1 million for their short season plus significant equity in the league. Now about that $150M number. You've seen it everywhere because it's clickable. But there's no verified contract publicly proving Caitlin was handed a straight $150 million cash deal. What's happening is this. Some coverage is projecting an eventual total value based on league equity plus sponsor upside, and converting that into a headline number. So the honest framing is, confirmed direction, big salary plus big equity plus brand incentives. Unconfirmed hype, exact 9-figure guarantee. But here's the twist. Even if the headline number is inflated, the WNBA's fear is still rational. Because Caitlin doesn't need a proven $150 million check to change the sport. She only needs a credible alternative that pays her more and treats her like an owner. And that alternative already exists. Which brings us to the timing bomb sitting under the WNBA calendar. Here's what makes this whole thing feel like a countdown instead of a rumor. The WNBA isn't just growing right now. It's entering a brand new money era starting 2026, and that timing could not be more sensitive. Because in 2026, the league's huge 11-year national media rights deal officially kicks in. Disney/ESPN, Amazon Prime Video, and NBC Universal all signed on for a package widely reported around $2.2 billion total, or roughly $200 million per year. That deal isn't just a check. It's a bet. Networks don't hand out 9-figure yearly rights because they feel nice. They do it because they believe ratings and attention are about to keep climbing. And here's the part WNBA execs can't say out loud, but absolutely understand. Those partners didn't buy a league. They bought momentum. They bought the idea that women's basketball has finally crossed into a mainstream era where casual fans show up, stay longer, and come back next week. And casual fans don't show up for the concept of a league. They show up for stars. That's why Caitlin Clark is different. She doesn't just improve the product, she creates demand. She's the reason people who never watched a WNBA game before suddenly knew tip-off times. She's the reason arenas in cities she doesn't even play for were selling extra seats because Clark is coming. So when a league is about to step into a deal this massive, losing the single biggest attention magnet in the sport doesn't just hurt feelings. It threatens the whole growth story the partners are paying for. And the media deal has another detail that makes 2026 even scarier. There's a 3-year review/reevaluation window baked into it. Meaning after the first 3 seasons of this new era, those rights fees can be revisited to make sure they match the league's actual value. Put that together, and you get the WNBA's nightmare math. 2026 starts the we expect growth era. 2026 to 2028 is the proof window. If ratings fall inside that window, the league's leverage drops. If ratings fall because the biggest star left, that's not bad luck. That's self-inflicted. So this isn't some far-off hypothetical. The league is basically walking into the most important 3-year stretch of its business life. And that's why Unrivaled's timing is brutal. Even if Unrivaled only runs an off-season format right now, it's giving stars a US-based alternative at the exact moment the WNBA needs stars to lock in the future narrative. And here's the twist casual fans don't always catch. The WNBA can survive a player retiring. It can survive a bad season. It can survive a draft class that doesn't pop. What it can't survive in this moment is a visible message that says, even your biggest star doesn't think this is the best place to build her future. Because once that idea hits the market, everything shifts, players, sponsors, media, even young fans deciding what league is the dream. So if Caitlin stays, the WNBA gets to walk into 2026 with its supernova front and center, selling the future it promised. But if she leaves, or even seriously flirts with leaving, 2026 becomes something else. It becomes the year the league has to prove it can keep growing without the person who sparked the growth. And that's why the WNBA isn't just nervous. They're racing the calendar. Because once this new media era starts, there's no hiding what the numbers say next. Here's the part that makes executives stare at ceilings at 3 a.m. Even if the WNBA somehow convinced themselves Caitlin would never walk, other players are watching this like a tutorial. Because Caitlin isn't just a player. She's a case study in leverage. The moment Unrivaled put an ownership-style model on the table, it quietly rewired the mental math for every star who came after her. Angel Reese sees it. She's already one of the most bankable personalities in women's basketball. She didn't need years in the pros to build a brand. She walked in with one. So when a league says, come here and you get a big check and a piece of the league, the question isn't if she'd listen. The question is why wouldn't she? Then you've got the next wave, the players still in college who are watching this unfold like a live documentary. Paige Buchers, Juju Watkins, the entire pipeline of stars who know they're walking into a sport that finally has multiple doors. And that matters more than most fans realize. Because the WNBA used to be the only real top-tier destination in the US. If you wanted to be a women's basketball pro, you didn't choose between leagues. You chose between WNBA money or overseas money. Now there's a third option, WNBA money versus overseas money versus a league that gives you ownership and big US checks. That is a different world. And when players have options, they stop negotiating like employees. They start negotiating like stars. So even if Caitlyn stays, the domino effect is still real. Unrivaled being viable shifts the floor for everyone. It tells the next superstar, you don't have to beg your league to value you. You can walk to the one that already does. And when athletes realize that a talent drain isn't a rumor, it's a timeline, which is exactly why the WNBA suddenly started moving like their house was on fire. You can almost feel the tone change this year. For the first time in a long time, the WNBA isn't talking like a league that just wants patience. It's talking like a league forced to compete. CBA negotiations heading into 2026 got loud for a reason. League proposals are now floating max salaries around $1 million and cap jumps that would have sounded mythical a couple years ago. Translation: they know the old pay structure can't survive if alternatives keep rising. But here's the catch: money alone doesn't erase the bigger issue. Unrivaled isn't just selling a higher salary. It's selling a different relationship. The WNBA can say, we'll pay you more. The Unrivaled can say, you'll own more. And ownership hits a different nerve. Because if Caitlyn signs a standard WNBA max contract, she's still a player on a payroll. She can still be traded. Her income still depends on the league's choices. If she signs something equity-heavy elsewhere, she becomes part of the league's DNA. She doesn't just get paid by the system. She gets paid when the system grows. That's the gap the WNBA can't close overnight, even with better salaries. And it's the reason Caitlyn's decision is so dangerous. Even if the WNBA fixes pay, fixes officiating optics, fixes marketing, the fact that she knows she could be an owner somewhere else changes everything. Because once you see a bigger future, it's hard to unsee it. So from Caitlyn's perspective, the question isn't, do I love the WNBA? It's, do I want to be the face of a league, or the foundation of one? And that leads to a truth nobody wants to say plainly. The WNBA needs Caitlyn more than Caitlyn needs the WNBA. So here we are. On one side is the WNBA, the biggest stage she grew up dreaming about, the league she's already changing from the inside, the place where legacy lives. On the other side is Unrivaled, a league built by players who got tired of waiting, a model that treats stars like partners, and a pitch that says, you're not joining us, you're owning this with us. People will scream about loyalty, but loyalty only works when it runs both ways. And Caitlyn has already given the WNBA the single biggest cultural boost it's ever had. The ratings, the sellouts, the sponsorship energy, none of that was guaranteed. She made it happen. So if she looks around and decides the future is bigger somewhere else, that isn't betrayal. That's business. Here's the real twist, though. Even her considering it changes the WNBA forever. Because now the league knows the era of take what you get is over. The athletes have options. The stars have leverage. And the next generation is watching every move. This isn't just about Caitlyn Clark getting paid. It's about whether women's basketball becomes a sport where the players finally control the machine, or where they keep asking permission to be valued. So the question isn't just should she take the deal. It's, if you were in her shoes, would you choose legacy or ownership? Tell me what you think in the comments, because whichever way she goes, the sport is never going back to what it was before.